Faith versus belief. Why faith makes belief unnecessary. Welcome. Today, we're going to explore one of the most profound yet misunderstood distinctions in human consciousness, the difference between faith and belief, and why having genuine faith means you no longer need belief. Most people use these words interchangeably. I believe in God and I have faith in God seem to mean the same thing. But they don't, not even close. And understanding this difference can fundamentally transform your spiritual life, your relationships, and your entire experience of reality. Before we begin, let me be clear. This isn't about religion versus atheism or one doctrine versus another. This is about direct experience versus conceptual frameworks. This is about living truth versus borrowed ideas. This is about what you know in your bones versus what you think in your head. So settle in. What we're about to explore might challenge everything you think you know about spirituality, certainty, and the nature of truth itself. Think about how much of your life is governed by what you believe. You believe certain things about yourself, who you are, what you're capable of, what you deserve. You believe certain things about other people, what motivates them, whether they can be trusted, what they think of you. You believe certain things about the world, whether it's fundamentally safe or dangerous, abundant or scarce, meaningful or random. Now ask yourself, how many of these beliefs have you actually verified? How many are simply stories you've inherited, assumptions you've never questioned, conclusions you drew from limited experience and then cemented into unchangeable truths? Most of us are walking around with thousands of unexamined beliefs, and we're letting them run our lives. We're making decisions based on these beliefs. We're creating relationships based on these beliefs. We're building entire identities based on these beliefs. And we're suffering because of these beliefs. But what if there was another way? What if instead of trying to believe the right things, you could simply trust life itself? What if instead of building elaborate mental structures to feel safe, you could rest in a deeper safety that doesn't depend on any structure at all? That's what we're going to explore together. Not as an abstract philosophical exercise, but as a practical pathway to freedom. Because that's what this is really about. Freedom. Freedom from the exhausting work of maintaining your beliefs. Freedom from the fear of having them challenged. Freedom from the need to convince others or yourself that you're right. This freedom is available to you right now. Not tomorrow, not after you've figured everything out, not after you've become more spiritual or more evolved. Right now. Because faith isn't something you achieve, it's something you remember. It's your natural state, waiting underneath all the beliefs you've layered on top of it. What is he defining belief? Let's start with belief. What is belief really? Belief is a mental construct. It's an idea you hold to be true, but which you cannot directly verify in this moment. Belief lives entirely in the mind, in the realm of thought. It's conceptual, it's abstract. It's always about something that's either in the past, in the future, or beyond your direct perception. When you say, I believe the sun will rise tomorrow, you're making a mental prediction based on past experience. When you say, I believe in heaven, you're accepting a concept about something you haven't experienced. When you say, I believe this person loves me, you're interpreting signs and signals through the filter of your thoughts. Notice something crucial here. Belief always contains doubt. It has to, because if you knew something directly, you wouldn't need to believe it. You don't believe you're reading these words right now. You don't believe you're breathing. These things are immediate, direct experiences. You simply know them. Belief is necessary when knowing is absent. It's a bridge we build across the gap of not knowing, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. We need working assumptions to function in the world. But let's be honest about what belief is. It's a mental substitute for direct experience. Think about how much energy belief requires. You have to maintain it. You have to defend it. When someone challenges your beliefs, what happens? You feel threatened. You argue. You gather evidence. You surround yourself with people who share your beliefs because being around others who believe differently feels uncomfortable, even dangerous. Why? Because belief is fragile. It's constructed. It's a house of cards that you've carefully arranged, and you know, somewhere deep down, that it could collapse if you look at it too hard or if someone throws the wrong question at it. Let me give you some examples of how belief operates in everyday life. You believe you're not good enough. Where did that come from? Maybe a parent criticized you. Maybe you failed at something important. Maybe you compared yourself to others and came up short, so you constructed a belief, I'm not good enough. And then what happens? You start looking for evidence to confirm this belief. You notice every mistake, every rejection, every moment when you fall short. And you ignore or minimize every success, every moment of competence, every time someone affirms you. Because the belief is running the show, filtering your experience. Or you believe that people can't be trusted. Maybe you were betrayed. Maybe you grew up in an environment where love was conditional. So you built this belief as protection. And now, you approach every relationship with suspicion. You hold back. You test people. You interpret ambiguous actions in the worst possible light. And guess what happens? People sense your distrust and they pull away, which confirms your belief that people can't be trusted. The belief creates the very reality it claims to describe. This is the trap of belief. It's self-reinforcing. It's a closed loop. You believe something, you act as if it's true, and then your actions create results that seem to prove the belief was correct all along. But you never stop to question whether the belief was true in the first place. And here's something even more insidious. We don't just have beliefs about specific things. We have meta-beliefs, beliefs about belief itself. We believe that having strong beliefs makes us strong. We believe that changing our beliefs means we were weak or wrong. We believe that if we let go of our beliefs, we'll fall into chaos or meaninglessness. So we cling to our beliefs like shipwrecked survivors clinging to debris. We think they're keeping us afloat. But what if they're actually weighing us down? What if the ocean itself would hold us if we just let go? i.e. defining faith. Now, let's talk about faith, real faith. Not the watered-down version that's become synonymous with belief, but faith in its purest, most radical sense. Faith is not mental. It's not conceptual. It's not something you think. Faith is something you are. It's a state of being, not a state of mind. Faith is total trust in the fundamental goodness and coherence of existence. It's not trust in a specific outcome. It's not trust in a doctrine. It's trust in the process itself. Faith is what remains when all beliefs have been stripped away. Here's the key insight. Faith doesn't require knowing what will happen. Faith doesn't require understanding how things work. Faith doesn't require certainty about the future. Faith is the deep recognition that you are held, that existence is not hostile to you, that at the deepest level, all is well. Think of a baby in its mother's arms. The baby doesn't believe it's safe. The baby doesn't have a conceptual framework about maternal love and protection. The baby simply rests in complete trust. That's faith. It's precognitive. It's existential. It's body-level knowing. Or imagine standing at the edge of a pool, about to fall backward into the water. Someone you trust deeply is behind you, ready to catch you. The moment you let yourself fall, that's faith. You're not thinking about it. You're not mentally rehearsing outcomes. You simply release and trust that you'll be caught. Faith is that release. It's the letting go of the need to control, to understand, to mentally map everything out. Faith is surrender to what is. And here's what makes faith so different from belief. Faith cannot be shaken by evidence or argument. Why? Because it's not built on evidence or argument. It's not a conclusion you've reached. It's a ground state of being. It's the recognition that regardless of what happens in the realm of appearances, at the deepest level, you're fundamentally okay. Let me be more specific about what faith feels like, because it's not abstract. When you're in faith, there's a quality of relaxation in your body. Your shoulders drop, your breath deepens. There's a softness around your eyes. You're not bracing against life. You're not tensed up, waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're simply here, open, available. When you're in faith, you can handle bad news without collapsing. You can face uncertainty without panic. You can sit with not knowing without needing to immediately figure everything out. There's a groundedness, a stability that isn't dependent on circumstances. I remember a woman who lost her husband suddenly. No warning, no time to prepare, just gone. And in the midst of her grief, which was real and deep, there was something else, a quality of acceptance, not resignation. She wasn't giving up on life, but a deep knowing that even this tragedy was somehow held in something larger. She didn't understand it. She didn't try to make it make sense. But she trusted that she would make it through, not because she believed everything happens for a reason, but because she had faith in life's capacity to move through her. That's faith. It doesn't make the pain go away. It doesn't provide easy answers, but it provides a ground to stand on when the ground beneath your feet has crumbled. Or think about someone starting a new venture, creating something that's never been done before. They don't know if it will work. They can't believe it will succeed because they have no evidence yet, but they have faith. Faith in their vision, faith in their capacity to learn and adapt, faith that the process itself is worthwhile regardless of the outcome. That faith allows them to step into the unknown without needing guarantees. Faith is what allows you to love fully, knowing you might get hurt. Faith is what allows you to speak your truth, knowing you might be rejected. Faith is what allows you to pursue your calling, knowing you might fail. Because faith isn't about avoiding pain or failure. Faith is about knowing you can meet whatever comes. Here's another way to understand it. Belief is about the content of your thoughts. Faith is about the context in which all thoughts arise. Belief is a specific idea you're holding. Faith is the space that holds all ideas, even contradictory ones. You can have faith and still have questions. You can have faith and still experience doubt. You can have faith and still feel fear. Faith doesn't erase these human experiences, but it provides a container large enough to hold them without being consumed by them. When you have faith, you stop trying to eliminate uncertainty. You stop trying to nail everything down. You stop trying to achieve absolute certainty before you act. You become comfortable with mystery, with ambiguity, with the fundamental unknowability of existence. And paradoxically, this comfort with not knowing gives you more clarity and more freedom than any amount of belief ever could. The problem with belief. So why do we rely so heavily on belief? Why do we cling to our beliefs as if our lives depend on them? Because we've lost touch with faith. We've forgotten how to trust the ground of being itself. So we compensate by creating elaborate mental structures. We build belief systems like fortresses, hoping they'll give us the security that faith once provided naturally. But here's the trap. The more you invest in belief, the more you move away from faith. Every time you add another brick to your belief system, you're implicitly saying, I need this mental structure to feel safe. I need these ideas to be true. Without them, I'm lost. This creates a vicious cycle. The more beliefs you accumulate, the more you have to defend. The more you defend, the more rigid you become. The more rigid you become, the more fragile you are. And the more fragile you are, the more desperately you cling to your beliefs. Look at religious fundamentalism. Look at ideological tribalism. Look at the culture wars. These aren't expressions of faith. These are expressions of belief systems that have become so calcified, so defended, that people would rather destroy each other than question their own mental constructs. True faith has no need for such rigidity. True faith is fluid, open, spacious. It can hold a paradox. It can sit with uncertainty. It doesn't need to have all the answers because it's not operating at the level of answers. Think about it. Jesus, Buddha, Rumi, Lao Tzu, the great mystics of every tradition. What did they have? Faith or belief? They spoke from direct experience, from union with the divine, from immediate knowing. They didn't say, I believe God exists. They said, I am. That's faith. That's knowing. That's truth that doesn't require the scaffolding of belief. And notice what happened. Their followers, unable to sustain that level of faith, converted their direct experience into belief systems. Christianity became a set of doctrines. Buddhism became a philosophy. Sufism became orthodoxy. The living fire of faith was cooled into the ash of belief. This isn't to criticize those traditions. It's to point out what happens when faith is translated into belief. Something essential is lost. The aliveness goes out of it. What was once a direct path becomes a map. And then people start worshipping the map instead of taking the journey. Let me tell you what happens when you live from belief instead of faith. You become anxious, because beliefs are always under threat. New information could disprove them. Other people might challenge them. Your own doubts might undermine them. So you live in a state of low-grade anxiety, always scanning for threats to your belief system. You become judgmental, because anyone who believes differently becomes a threat. If they're right, you might be wrong. And you can't afford to be wrong because your entire sense of safety and identity is built on your beliefs being correct. So you judge them, dismiss them, avoid them, or try to convert them. You become dishonest, not necessarily with others, but with yourself. You ignore evidence that contradicts your beliefs. You rationalize away inconsistencies. You perform mental gymnastics to maintain your belief structure. You become less interested in truth and more interested in being right. You become disconnected from your direct experience because your beliefs tell you what you should be experiencing, what your experience means, how you should interpret it. So instead of simply being with what is, you're constantly filtering your experience through your belief system. You're living in your head instead of living in reality. You become exhausted because maintaining a belief system takes constant energy. You have to keep reinforcing it. You have to keep defending it. You have to keep gathering evidence for it. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes constant effort, and the moment you relax, it pops up. And perhaps most tragically, you become isolated. Because deep connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires letting go of the need to be right. When you're invested in your beliefs, you can't truly listen to someone who believes differently. You're too busy defending, too busy arguing your position. Real intimacy, the kind where you're seen and known fully, becomes impossible because you're not even letting yourself be seen. You're hiding behind your beliefs. This is the cost of living from belief. And most people don't even realize they're paying it because this is all they've ever known. They think this anxiety, this judgment, this exhaustion, this isolation, they think this is just how life is. They don't know there's another way, but there is. There's faith, and faith changes everything. By faith is lived experience. So how do you live from faith rather than belief? How do you access this deeper knowing? First, understand that faith isn't something you acquire. It's something you uncover. It's already there, underneath all your beliefs, waiting to be rediscovered. Faith is your natural state. It's what you are when you're not trying to be anything. Watch a child before they've been conditioned by society. They have faith. They don't question whether they deserve to exist. They don't worry about the meaning of life. They don't need to believe in anything because they're simply alive, simply present, simply trusting. Then something happens. They get hurt. They get betrayed. They learn that the world isn't always safe. And they start building belief systems to protect themselves. I need to be smart to be valued. I need to be strong to be safe. I need to control outcomes to be okay. These beliefs become armor, but armor is heavy. And eventually, the armor becomes a prison. Faith is what happens when you take off the armor, when you stop trying to protect yourself with mental constructs, when you allow yourself to be vulnerable to life as it actually is, not as you think it should be. This doesn't mean being naive. This doesn't mean ignoring danger or being reckless. Faith operates at a different level than survival strategies. You can be street smart and still have faith. You can plan for the future and still have faith. Faith isn't about being foolish. It's about knowing at the deepest level that you're fundamentally okay, regardless of outcomes. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine you're facing a serious illness. The belief-based approach would be, I believe I'm going to be healed. I believe God will cure me. I believe if I think positively enough, I'll recover. This is mental. This is conditional. This is dependent on a specific outcome. The faith-based approach would be, I don't know what will happen to this body. I don't know if I'll be cured. But I know in my deepest being that I am held by something greater than this illness. Whatever happens, I am fundamentally okay. Not because I understand why this is happening, but because I trust the process of life itself. Can you feel the difference? One is tight, grasping, dependent on things going a certain way. The other is open, surrendered, at peace regardless of outcomes. This is the freedom that faith offers. When you have faith, you don't need things to be different than they are to be okay. You're not bargaining with reality. You're not making deals with God. You're simply resting in what is. Let me share another example. I once knew a man who lost his business, his marriage, and his home all within a year. By any measure, his life had fallen apart. And yet, when you talked to him, there was no bitterness, no despair, no sense of being defeated. He told me, "I don't understand why all this happened. I don't know what comes next. But somehow I feel more alive now than I did when everything was working. I've stopped trying to control life, and life is starting to move through me in ways I never imagined." That's faith. It's not about having a good life where everything goes your way. It's about being able to meet life on life's terms, whatever those terms happen to be. Or consider the artist who creates without knowing if anyone will appreciate their work. They don't believe they'll be successful. They can't know if their art will resonate, but they have faith in the creative impulse itself. They trust that the act of creating has value, regardless of external validation. So they create, not from a place of grasping for recognition, but from a place of deep trust in the creative process. Or think about the parent who lets their child make mistakes. They don't believe everything will turn out perfectly. They know their child might get hurt, might fail, might struggle, but they have faith in their child's capacity to learn and grow. So they don't helicopter, don't control, don't try to prevent every hardship. They hold space, they offer support, but they trust the process of their child's development. This is what faith looks like in daily life. It's not dramatic, it's not mystical in the sense of being otherworldly. It's actually very grounded, very practical. Faith allows you to show up fully for whatever is happening without being overwhelmed by it. When you have faith, difficult conversations become easier because you're not trying to control the outcome. You can speak your truth and let the chips fall where they may. You can listen to hard feedback without collapsing. You can hold space for conflict without needing to immediately resolve it. When you have faith, decisions become simpler because you're not paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong choice. You make the best decision you can with the information you have, and then you trust that you'll handle whatever consequences arise. You're not trying to achieve perfect certainty before you act. When you have faith, failure loses its sting because you're not defining yourself by outcomes. You can try things, fail at them, and simply gather information for the next attempt. You're not risking your fundamental worth when you risk failure. This is what it means to live from faith. It's not about being perfect or having special powers. It's about being real, being present, and trusting that you're held by something larger than your small, frightened ego. The paradox of faith. Here's where it gets interesting. Faith contains a paradox that belief cannot hold. Belief says, this is true and that is false. It's binary. It's either or. You believe in God or you don't. You believe in heaven or you don't. You're a Christian or a Muslim or an atheist. Belief requires taking sides. But faith says, it's all true, and none of it's true, and both are true simultaneously. Faith can hold contradictions because it's not operating at the level of conceptual thought where contradictions are problems. The great mystics understood this. They spoke in paradoxes. Die before you die. Lose yourself to find yourself. The way up is the way down. These aren't logical statements. They're pointers to a truth that exists beyond logic, beyond the rational mind. Belief needs consistency. Faith can dance with inconsistency. Belief needs to understand. Faith can rest in mystery. Belief needs answers. Faith is comfortable with questions. Think about love. Real love. Not romantic fantasy, but the kind of love that sees clearly and accepts completely. Do you believe in the person you love, or do you simply love them, warts and all, without needing them to be different? Faith is like that. It's unconditional acceptance of what is. Not passive resignation, but active embrace. You can work to change things and still have faith. You can fight injustice and still have faith. Faith isn't about being passive. It's about acting from a place of deep trust rather than from a place of fear and grasping. Here's another paradox. Faith requires nothing, yet it demands everything. You don't need to do anything to have faith. You don't need to recite creeds or perform rituals or believe the right things. Faith is already present. It's your natural state. But living from faith demands everything. It demands that you let go of the false security of your belief systems. It demands that you surrender the illusion of control. It demands that you walk into the unknown without a map. It demands that you die to who you thought you were so you can discover who you actually are. This is why so few people live from faith. It's easier to cling to beliefs. Beliefs give you something to hold on to, Faith asks you to let go of everything and fall into emptiness, and discover that the emptiness is actually fullness, that the void is actually plenum, that death is actually life. Let me give you another paradox. Faith makes you both more certain and less certain at the same time. More certain because you know at the deepest level that you're fundamentally okay. This knowing is unshakable. Nothing can touch it. But less certain about specific things, about beliefs, about how things should be. You become comfortable saying, I don't know. You stop needing to have all the answers. This drives belief-oriented people crazy. They want certainty. They want to know exactly what's true and what's false. They want clear boundaries, clear categories, clear answers. And when you live from faith, you can't give them that. Because faith is fluid. It adapts. It evolves. It responds to what is, rather than trying to force reality into predetermined categories. Here's yet another paradox. Faith is both personal and universal. It's deeply personal. Your experience of faith is uniquely yours. No one can tell you what your faith should look like, but it's also universal. Everyone who touches genuine faith is touching the same ground of being. The mystics of all traditions recognize each other because they're drinking from the same well, even if they use different cups, different languages, different metaphors. Belief divides. My belief is right, yours is wrong. Faith unites. We're all expressions of the same source, appearing in different forms. This doesn't mean all paths are identical, but it means all genuine paths lead to the same place. The recognition of our fundamental unity with all that is. Consider the paradox of effort and effortlessness. Faith requires tremendous effort, the effort to let go, to surrender, to remain open. But once you're in faith, everything becomes effortless. Actions arise naturally. You're not forcing anything. You're not trying to be anyone. You're simply responding to what is with what wants to come through you. Or think about the paradox of emptiness and fullness. When you let go of all your beliefs, all your ideas about who you are, you become empty. And this emptiness is terrifying to the ego. But stay with it, and you discover that this emptiness is not nothing. It's everything. It's pure potential. It's the source from which all form arises. You become like an empty cup, able to receive whatever life pours into you. The paradox of strength and vulnerability. Faith makes you incredibly strong, able to face anything, endure anything, meet anything. But this strength comes through vulnerability, through being willing to be hurt, to be wrong, to not know. It's the opposite of the brittle strength that comes from armoring yourself. It's the flexible strength of a reed that bends in the wind but doesn't break. These paradoxes can't be resolved intellectually. You can't figure them out. You can only live them. And as you live them, they stop being paradoxes. They become simple truths about the nature of reality. Practical implications. Let's get practical. What does it mean to live from faith rather than belief in everyday life? It means you stop trying to convince others that you're right. When you have faith, you have no need to convert anyone. You're not threatened by different perspectives. You can listen without defensiveness. You can learn from everyone because you're not protecting a fragile belief system. Think about your last argument about politics, or religion, or the right way to raise children. How much energy did you spend trying to convince the other person? How defensive did you feel? How much did you really listen to their perspective? When you have faith, those arguments become conversations. You share your perspective, you listen to theirs, and you trust that everyone is finding their own way. It means you stop living in the prison of should. Belief creates endless shoulds. The world should be fair. People should be kind. Life should be easier. Faith accepts what is without demanding that reality conform to your ideas of how it should be. This doesn't mean you don't work for change, but you work from inspiration rather than from resistance. You work because something calls you, not because you're fighting against what is. You see injustice and you act to change it, but you're not consumed by rage at how things shouldn't be this way. You're engaged without being attached. It means you stop future tripping and past dwelling. Belief is always about past or future. I believe this happened. I believe that will happen. Faith is about now, this moment, this breath, this experience. When you have faith, you're present, because you're not constantly checking your mental models against reality. Imagine waking up in the morning. The belief-oriented person immediately starts thinking, what do I have to do today? What problems might come up? What if this goes wrong? The faith-oriented person wakes up and simply asks, what wants to happen today? What's alive in me right now? How can I serve what's emerging? Can you feel the difference in energy? It means your relationships transform. You stop needing people to be certain ways. You stop trying to control outcomes. You can love without grasping, commit without clinging, care without suffocating. You give people space to be who they are because you're not using them to validate your beliefs about how relationships should work. I've seen marriages transform when even one person shifts from belief to faith. Instead of trying to change their partner, instead of having a mental list of what their partner should be doing differently, they simply show up with love and acceptance. And paradoxically, when they stop trying to change their partner often changes naturally, because they're finally being seen and loved for who they are, not for who they should be. It means you become less religious and more spiritual, less concerned with doctrine and more concerned with direct experience, less interested in being right and more interested in being awake, less focused on the afterlife and more engaged with this life. You might still participate in religious traditions, but you hold them lightly. You see them as fingers pointing at the moon, not as the moon itself. You can appreciate the wisdom in different traditions without needing yours to be the only true one. It means you stop being afraid of death, not because you believe in an afterlife, but because you recognize that you are not separate from the totality of existence. You are life itself, temporarily appearing in this form. When the form dissolves, life continues. Where's the problem? This doesn't mean you're careless with your life. You still take care of your body, you still avoid unnecessary risks. But you're not living in fear of death. You're not desperately trying to extend your life at any cost. You can face mortality with curiosity rather than terror. It means you become more playful, more creative, more spontaneous. Belief makes you serious. You have to maintain your positions. You have to be consistent. Faith allows you to experiment, to try things, to fail, to start over. You're playing in the field of existence rather than grimly defending your corner of it. Watch children play. They're totally engaged, totally present, totally alive. Then they're done, and they move on to the next thing. No attachment, no need to be good at it, no worry about what it means. That's the quality faith brings to adult life. You can work hard, care deeply, give your all, and then let go when it's time to move on. It means you stop waiting for permission. Belief often comes with rules. I should wait until I'm ready. I should wait until I'm certain. I should wait until I have approval. Faith says, I'm being called to do this. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if it will work, but I trust the calling more than I trust my doubts. This is how new things come into the world, through people who have faith in what wants to emerge, even when they don't have beliefs to support it. It means your relationship with mistakes changes completely. When you operate from belief, mistakes are threats. They suggest your beliefs might be wrong, so you avoid them, hide them, make excuses for them. When you operate from faith, mistakes are just information. Oh, that didn't work. Interesting. What can I learn? What's next? You're not defending your image of being right. You're committed to discovering what's true. It means you become more generous. Belief creates scarcity. If you're right, I might be wrong. If you succeed, I might fail. Faith recognizes abundance. There's enough truth for everyone. Your success doesn't diminish me. Your joy doesn't take away from mine. So you can genuinely celebrate others, support others, give to others without keeping score. It means you stop performing. So much of life is performance. Trying to appear certain, competent, successful, spiritual. When you have faith, you can be real. You can admit you don't know. You can show your struggles. You can be human. And ironically, this authenticity connects you with others far more deeply than any performance ever could. The shift from belief to faith. So how does the shift happen? How do you move from belief to faith? First, become aware of your beliefs. Notice how many thoughts you have that start with, I believe, or I think, or I'm sure. Notice how you feel when someone challenges these beliefs. Notice the tightness, the defensiveness, the need to be right. Keep a journal for a week. Write down every belief you notice yourself operating from. I believe I'm not good enough. I believe people can't be trusted. I believe the world is getting worse. I believe I need to work hard to be valued. Don't judge these beliefs. Just notice them. See how many you have. See how much they run your life. Then start questioning your beliefs. Not to destroy them, but to see if they're actually true. Use Byron Katie's 4 questions. Is it true? Can you absolutely know it's true? How do you react when you believe that thought? Who would you be without that thought? Let's try this with a common belief. I believe I need to be successful to be worthy. Is it true? Well, you've been operating as if it is. Can you absolutely know it's true? Can you prove it? How do you react when you believe this thought? You probably work too hard. You probably feel anxious about outcomes. You probably judge yourself harshly when you fail. Who would you be without that thought? You might be more relaxed, more creative, more willing to take risks, more able to enjoy the process rather than just focusing on results. You'll find that most of your beliefs are just inherited ideas. You picked them up from your parents, your culture, your experiences, and you never questioned whether they're actually true or whether they serve you. They're like software programs running in the background, shaping your experience without your conscious awareness. As you question your beliefs, something opens up. Space appears. And in that space, you might catch a glimpse of faith. Not as something you do, but as something that's already here, that's always been here. Practice surrender. Start with small things. Surrender your need to control the traffic. When you're stuck in traffic, instead of getting frustrated, trying to will the cars to move faster, just breathe. Accept that this is happening. Notice how your body softens when you stop resisting. Surrender your need to control other people's opinions. Say something true and let people react however they react. Don't try to manage their response. Don't try to explain yourself into their approval. Just speak your truth and let it land however it lands. Surrender your need to control outcomes. Do your best on a project, then let it go. Submit the application and stop obsessing about whether you'll be accepted. Have the difficult conversation and stop trying to make the other person respond a certain way. Notice what happens. Notice that you don't actually fall apart. Notice that life continues, often more smoothly than when you were trying to control everything. Each time you surrender, you're strengthening faith. You're learning in your body that you can handle whatever comes. Spend time in nature. This is crucial. Nature doesn't believe anything. A tree doesn't believe in photosynthesis, it just does it. A bird doesn't believe in flying, it just flies. A river doesn't believe in flowing, it just flows. Nature operates from pure being, from faith. When you're in nature, you can feel this. You can feel the trees simply being trees, with no anxiety about whether they're doing it right. You can watch animals moving with total presence, a total engagement with the moment. You can sense the fundamental trust that pervades everything. The trust that keeps birds flying south in winter. The trust that brings flowers up through frozen ground in spring. By spending time in nature, you remember what this feels like. You drop out of your head and into your body. You stop thinking about life and start experiencing it directly. And in that direct experience, faith is obvious. It's the ground of everything. Meditate. Not to achieve anything, not to become enlightened, but simply to watch the mind, to see how thoughts arise and pass, to recognize that you are not your thoughts, and to rest in the awareness that's always here, underneath all the mental noise. Start with just 5 minutes a day. Sit quietly, watch your breath. When thoughts come, and they will come, don't fight them. Just notice them. Oh, there's a thought about my to-do list. There's a thought about what that person said yesterday. There's a belief that I'm not doing this right. See them as clouds passing through the sky of your awareness. As you meditate regularly, you start to recognize the difference between the content of your mind and the awareness that observes that content. The content is always changing. Thoughts, emotions, sensations coming and going. But awareness itself is constant, unchanging, always present. That awareness is closer to who you really are than any of your beliefs about yourself. Be with people who embody faith, not people who preach belief, but people who radiate presence, who are comfortable with uncertainty, who can sit with you in silence and make you feel at home in yourself. Faith is contagious. Pay attention to who you feel most relaxed around. Who doesn't need you to be anyone other than who you are? Who doesn't try to fix you or change you or convince you of anything? Who just meets you where you are with acceptance and presence? Spend more time with those people. They're teaching you faith without saying a word. Practice radical honesty with yourself. This is difficult but essential. Stop pretending you believe things you don't really believe. Stop pretending you're certain when you're actually confused. Stop pretending you have it all figured out when you're actually lost. What if you just admitted the truth? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm scared. I'm confused. I don't have the answers. This feels vulnerable, even dangerous, but it's the doorway to faith. Because once you stop pretending, once you stop trying to maintain the illusion of certainty, you can finally relax. You can finally be real. And here's what's interesting. When you admit you don't know, when you drop the pretense of certainty, often the way forward becomes clear. Not because you figured it out, but because you stop blocking the natural intelligence that wants to move through you. Work with your body. Belief lives in the head. Faith lives in the body. So you need to get out of your head and into your body. This could be yoga, dance, martial arts, running, swimming, any practice that gets you fully into your physical experience. When you're fully in your body, you can't maintain beliefs in the same way. You're too busy sensing, feeling, moving, responding. You drop into a more immediate relationship with reality, and in that immediacy, faith becomes accessible. Notice your breathing. This might sound too simple, but it's profound. When you're lost in belief, your breathing is shallow, up in your chest. When you're in faith, your breathing is deep, down in your belly. So one quick way to shift from belief to faith is simply to breathe deeply. 3 deep breaths can change your entire state. And finally, be patient with yourself. You've been building belief systems your whole life. They won't dissolve overnight. But each time you catch yourself clinging to a belief, each time you choose trust over control, each time you surrender to what is, you're strengthening the faith muscle. You're remembering what you always were. The shift from belief to faith isn't a one-time event. It's a continual practice, a continual letting go, a continual return to what's real. Some days you'll live from faith, some days you'll fall back into belief. That's okay, that's human. Just keep coming back, keep questioning, keep surrendering, keep trusting. The faith is always there, waiting for you to remember. Closing. So, why don't you need belief if you have faith? Because belief is a poor substitute for knowing. It's a mental construct trying to do the job that faith does naturally. When you have faith, real faith, existential faith, you don't need to believe anything. You know, not with your mind, but with your entire being. You know that you're held. You know that existence is not hostile to you. You know that at the deepest level, all is well. Not because you can prove it, not because you've convinced yourself, but because you've stopped resisting it. You've stopped trying to figure everything out and you've started trusting the unfolding. This is the great secret that mystics have been pointing to for millennia. You are not separate from the totality. You are the universe experiencing itself. You are life itself, temporarily appearing in this form. When you know this, not as a belief, but as lived reality, everything changes. You stop defending, you stop attacking, you stop grasping, you stop pushing away, you simply are. And from that being, authentic action arises. Not action based on fear, not action based on beliefs about how things should be, but action that flows from the source of life itself. This is freedom. Not freedom from circumstances, but freedom in circumstances. Not freedom from suffering, but freedom even in suffering. Not freedom as an escape from life, but freedom as a total embrace of life. Let me tell you what becomes possible when you live from faith instead of belief. You become unshakable, not because nothing can hurt you, but because you know you can meet whatever comes. You're not dependent on circumstances being a certain way to be okay. You've found a stability that exists underneath all the changes, all the ups and downs, all the chaos of life. You become truly present. Instead of living in your head, rehearsing the past, or worrying about the future, you're here. now, alive to this moment. And this moment, when you're fully present to it, is always enough. It's always complete. It's always perfect, even when it's painful. You become authentic. You stop performing, stop pretending, stop trying to be someone you're not. You can simply be yourself, warts and all, because you're not trying to earn love or approval or validation through being a certain way. You're already complete. You're already enough. You become compassionate, not with the forced compassion that comes from believing you should be kind, but with the natural compassion that arises when you recognize yourself in everyone. When you see that we're all struggling, we're all confused, we're all doing our best with what we know. When you stop judging yourself, you stop judging others. You become creative. Real creativity doesn't come from belief. It comes from the unknown, from the mysterious source that moves through us when we get out of our own way. When you have faith, you can dive into the unknown without fear. You can experiment. You can play. You can create something that's never existed before. You become more alive. This is the bottom line. Belief deadens you because you're living in concepts, in ideas, in mental constructs. Faith enlivens you because you're living in direct contact with reality. You feel more, you sense more. You're more awake to the incredible gift of being alive. So let go of belief. Question everything you think you know. Be willing to not know. Be willing to be wrong. Be willing to look foolish. Be willing to fall. And see what remains when all the mental constructs fall away. What remains is faith. What remains is trust. What remains is love. What remains is presence. What remains is the miracle of consciousness experiencing itself through this particular form you call yourself. This faith isn't something you achieve or attain. It's what you are when you stop trying to be anything else. It's your natural state, your true nature, your deepest reality. You don't need to believe you're held by something greater than yourself. You are that something greater, temporarily forgetting itself so it can experience the joy of remembering. You don't need to believe life is meaningful. You are the meaning that life is searching for, the purpose that existence is fulfilling through your very existence. You don't need to believe you're loved. You are love itself, taking form, reaching out to itself in the form of others, playing this cosmic game of hide and seek. This isn't poetry. This isn't metaphor. This is the deepest truth about who you are. Not a truth you need to believe in, but a truth you can know directly when you stop all the believing and simply be. So, here's my invitation to you. For the next week, notice every time you use the word believe. Notice every time you're defending a position, trying to be right, needing others to agree with you. Notice the energy it takes, the tension it creates. And then, just for a moment, let it go. Let go of the need to be right. Let go of the need to know. Let go of the need to have it all figured out. And just breathe. Just be. Just rest in this moment, exactly as it is. In that moment, you might catch a glimpse of faith, not as a concept, but as a direct experience. A felt sense of being held, of being okay, of being exactly where you need to be. That glimpse is enough. You don't need to make it into a belief. You don't need to try to recreate it. You don't need to figure out how it happened. Just let it be what it is, a reminder of what's always true underneath all your beliefs. And then, come back to your life. Come back to your challenges and your joys, your confusion and your clarity, your pain and your pleasure. But come back a little lighter. Come back with a little more trust. Come back with a little more willingness to let life be what it is without needing to control it. This is the journey from belief to faith, not a journey to somewhere else, but a journey deeper into here, deeper into now, deeper into the truth of what you already are. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being open to questioning your beliefs. Thank you for being willing to explore faith, even if you're not sure what that means yet. The fact that you've listened this far tells me something about you. You're ready to let go of what no longer serves you, ready to trust something deeper, ready to remember what you've always known but perhaps forgotten. So go now, live your life, make your mistakes, take your risks, love your people, do your work. And underneath it all, trust. Trust the ground of being, trust the process, trust yourself. You are held. You always have been, you always will be. And that's not something you need to believe. It's something you can know,